Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you for joining Sheer Social. I am Alice Fuller, Principal Consultant at Sheer Social, and today I am going to have a stimulating conversation about social media in higher education. Or better yet, I'm going to talk about social media and the importance of students receiving training in social media um, as they're beginning to graduate and earn jobs and beginning to market themselves. I want to talk about how important it is for them to get some training while they're still in college and to be able to market themselves. And I have invited um, what I think is probably one of the best individuals I could invite for this conversation, Dr. William Ward. He is the social media professor at Syracuse University, and I'll let him do a more full-on introduction of him. But he is considered one of the experts in this field of social media and training students in higher education. So, Dr. Ward, introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. Great to be here and great to be talking on this topic. My name's Dr. William J. Ward. Most people know me as Dr. Forward. It's DR, the number 4, WARD. You can find me with that Dr. Forward symbol on all the different social networks. So a lot of people know me more as Dr. Forward than they do Dr. William J. Ward. But yeah, I do. I've been teaching students and industry, educating them on how to use social media for business and professional use. And I've been doing that with the Newhouse School at Syracuse University, and also a partnership with Hootsuite, where we have an advanced social media strategy certificate. That's an industry certification. Early on, worked with Hootsuite on a higher education program where there's courseware to support professors and students with learning how to use social and helping them get certified in using social professionally.
Mhm.
Also doing some work with the Cannes Lion International Festival of Creativity for a industry academy and diploma in June at the Cannes Lion International Festival of Creativity. So doing a lot of work with industry as well. So that's just a little background on myself. So thank you for your great introduction and great to be here and looking forward to talking more about it.
Wonderful. So, in your opinion, considering your background, because you worked professionally as a marketer before you became a professor.
Mhm.
So, in your opinion, what are some of the things that the universities and colleges are doing well or beginning to do better? Let's put it
Yeah,
that way before we get into what they can
sure.
do wrong.
Well, colleges or universities are doing a really good job of using social for their businesses. So they're using social as a marketing tool to promote their colleges and universities and programs. They're using it to recruit students and to connect with alumni. So they're using it in the business sense for the college and the brand, and they're doing a really good job of that. So on that end, they're successful. Where the real opportunity and missing piece is on the classroom side, making sure that the students that they when they arrive on campus and get into the classrooms, that they have the opportunities to learn how to use social in a professional way. So there's a lot of great opportunity to improve on that. But they're doing a really good job using it as a marketing tool. So in some ways, it's basically they reach out to the students and the alumni and the parents and get them connected back to the university and get them to come to the college to go to go to their programs and classes and get their degrees there. And then sometimes they get into the classroom and they find out that they're not able to use social. It's sort of like turn off your phone, turn off your computer, turn off your laptops, and that doesn't really work that way in the real world anymore. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But yeah, so they are doing a great job using it as a marketing communication tool and branding tool, and using it for the business side. And a great opportunity on the education side, though.
So, have we evolved to where you think if a college does not have a Facebook and or a Twitter profile, they are probably way behind the ball at this point.
Oh
It's expected.
yeah. And like I said, you'll find most universities and colleges are on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and even Snapchat now for some of them. So they are using the channels to connect, with their customers, and their stakeholders, and they're really doing a good job of it. Some of them are doing a really good job of that. They hire professionals to run that for them, and and they understand the importance of it for that side. Um, and again, the gap seems to be is that when they get on the education side, they're not necessarily bringing that those skill sets and opportunities into the classroom for students to get those great jobs that are out there for helping companies use all these great new tools for digital and social.
Okay. Let's talk about the perception. The perception is because students are young
Yeah.
and they've grown up within this digital age.
Yeah.
And of course, they
Yeah.
know how to tweet and do Facebook and Snapchat
Yeah.
personally. So does that necessarily lend itself to using it professionally, especially if you're trying to, you're your junior, senior year, and you're trying to look good for a recruiter?
Yeah. Well, no, it really doesn't. Just being able to use social to connect with your friends and family, and share a picture or share a something funny with them, or arrange to get together socially, like that those kind of uses of tools. I mean, that's the same as what people used the telephone before, right? You could call up your friends and say, hey, let's meet over at the mall or go to a movie, and that doesn't really qualify you for getting a job. And even right now it's at spring break. My mother and aunt, who are in their late 70s, they're down in the Florida Keys right now, and they're posting photos to Facebook from the trip and the fun that they're having down there, making the rest of the family jealous. They're sharing photos and text messaging and all those skills. So the ability to communicate with friends and family, although wonderful, isn't really the skill. So my 70-year-old plus mother and aunt, just because they're using it to communicate with family doesn't mean they could go run a business around these tools. And it's the same for young people as well. So it really is, the business skills, the marketing skills, and how to connect social skills to those needs and opportunities that's missing. And that's something that has to be taught. That's not inherent in people. So that requires education. And so, yeah, it's a real misconception to think that students just, are born with those skills. Nobody is. And it really isn't just students, it's also the older people in the workforce who, know how to do business, and if, they're good at the things that they're good at, but they don't necessarily know how to connect social and use them to their advantage either. So they also need education and training. So really everybody needs education and training. The best example I can use, it's sort of like, historically, right, a fax machine came out and you could send information back and forth to people. And it'd be the equivalent of saying, because I know, because I can send a fax, I'm good at business. And that's not true. So it's the same with social. Because I can send a message on Snapchat doesn't make me a business mogul, or good at branding or marketing, or good at customer service and support and intelligence, competitive intelligence, and data analytics, all the stuff that goes, data analytics, all the stuff that goes around the social skill sets just aren't inherent in people. So they have to be educated in how to do that.
So where does that responsibility fall? Should that come from the administration down to the professors, down to the students, or the professors just kind of, you've got to figure this out on your, because you're kind of stuck in the middle of things. Well, do they have to figure it out on their own?
Yeah, it's basically people mostly figuring it out on their own. So in some ways, both administration and the education side of the house are sort of guilty at this, because on the administration side, they're using all these tools to run their business, and they see the benefits of that, and they're hiring professionals to do that, or equipping some people with the skills, but they're not really providing training and skills for campus wide for the faculty and staff. So a handful of people have those skills and everybody else doesn't. So it's sort of like saying, oh, I don't have to learn how to do social because Susie's doing that for us. And in reality, everybody really needs these skill sets, because it's really about communicating and connecting with people and collaboration, and that's what these tools enable. So everybody needs to be able to do that, and so using that to your advantage. And so I think really creating that culture around education and training and importance of social as a business and communication tool. And so the administration could do a lot to create that atmosphere for the administration and staff who are running it on the business side, and then also creating that same opportunity on the education side, and creating that culture of using it, so that it isn't just one professor that's teaching it, it's entire departments that are using it. So, you really shouldn't just encounter social as part of one class. In my opinion, it should be integrated into all classes in some form or fashion. Doesn't mean that people have to be on social media through an entire class and tweeting and doing all that, but at times there's great opportunity to share the learning content, gives students access to assignments, have assignments that utilize these tools in a professional way. And that can apply to any class. It's not just a business or marketing class or an advertising or PR class. It could be it could be a history class or an English class, where people could use these tools for research, for an assignment, see what people are talking about, and then incorporate that into their writing or into a history assignment. So I really think it's much broader than even just the business marketing side. It just can be applied into all classes, and it should become part of the culture.
Mm-hmm. Let's delve a little bit into how you got involved in teaching social media. That first opportunity where you thought, well, you know what, I could literally probably make this more interactive for my students,
Mm-hmm.
and they could probably get more out of it if I integrated social media. What were your first steps?
Yeah. Well, back in 2007 and 2008, when Facebook was just sort of growing up and Twitter was just launched and starting to get a little traction, and blogging was becoming more popular. All these tools for communicating and sharing and connecting with people at a scale. So it was both one-on-one communication, as well as one-to-many type communication. So I started out in terms of all these tools, like trying to figure out how to do it myself. So I started blogging and using social media, and I quickly was amazed how I could connect with the smartest people around the world that I normally wouldn't have access to, and now I could have a conversation with them and invite them to speak to a class like you and I are doing, and come in and help the students learn from that. And really the one of the first times where I did a study abroad program where I brought students to the Cannes Lion International Festival of Creativity in Cannes, France. And some of the students received scholarships from the Rochester American Marketing Association. And part of the requirement of the scholarship is that they had to, share with them what they were doing over there, and what they were learning. And they also had to do a presentation when they came back. So we went to the festival over in France, and we were live tweeting during the festival about what we were learning. And then the students were also doing daily blog posts summarizing their learning and then sharing that out. So it was a great way to connect back to all the people back in the States, their family and friends, the American Marketing Association folks that were eager to see how their money was being spent and what the students were learning from their scholarship, and a great way to connect with the alumni. And then the university could also promote and talk about that. So all of a sudden, people, normally in the past, if somebody went on a study abroad program, they disappeared for a few weeks or a month or 6 weeks, and then came back, and they could then, share what happened. And now people can live in the moment and in almost real time and see what's going on and what people are learning and sharing. And so it just seemed like a natural, it still baffles me when people question social media, because it was so obvious. It's just a great communication and collaboration tool, a great way to share. And that just seems to be, proven out as a matter of fact. So when people question the use of it, I was always taken aback. I'm like, here we were in another country able to connect and share information, broadly. And the other great thing was, as you meet people, so the students were meeting and connecting with, industry leaders, thought leaders over there. And now when they came back to the States, people from all over the world, they now had a way to stay in touch with them and communicate. So, we historically didn't have that ability to really keep up with people and see what's going on and continue the learning. So, you meet people face to face to a conference and you share that information of connecting. And now you can stay in touch in an ongoing way and continue the conversation and learning in all kinds of wonderful ways. So, it was just a natural. So yeah, we did that back in 2007 and 2008, and then just continued to integrate that more into the classroom. In 2011, I got a chance to join the Newhouse faculty at Syracuse University as a social media professor, probably one of the first social media professors in the country, and really dive into social at that point. But previously, I was integrating it into marketing classes and business classes.
What was the students' first reaction when you said, "Hey, we're going to be using these tools of social media"? It's like, well, were they surprised? Were they like, "Okay, that's that's more work than we really want to do because we're so accustomed to just sharing information with our friends. What was their initial reaction?
Yeah, there was pushback in a couple ways. Certainly one way was, yeah, I use social media to goof off and have fun with my friends, and now you want me to use it in a professional business way. I don't want to do that. And it was like, well, you could do that, but if you don't use social in a professional way, the companies that are recruiting and hiring, look at your social profiles, look at your LinkedIn profiles, see what you're sharing online to see if you'd be a potential good member of a team and what you could contribute. And so if you're only playing and goofing off on social, there's no evidence there that you would make a great employee or what you could bring to the company. So, they're going to move on to somebody else who is using social in that way. So, I certainly had to show them how recruiters were using social, and some of them were, back then surprised at that people were actually looking at what they were doing and sharing online, and that was part of the decision. And I think the other part about that is that, the recruiters and people who are hiring aren't going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you, hey, I went on your social profiles and saw all this stuff that, I didn't think would be great for having you on a team or anything, inappropriate or something. They're just going to move on to the next person, and you'll never know why you didn't get hired. But they are definitely looking at it. I mean, they're using it for recruiting and retention. So there's pushback on that side of it. The other one there's real pushback is, and it's still the pushback today is, the traditional course where there's a lecture, you go in and somebody lectures and then they give you some assignments and you have some readings and you go and you do that on your own. And, it's a very, kind of archaic way of thinking about learning and about the classroom, but it's also very easy. So the students and the professors can put themselves on autopilot around that model. And the students, they don't maybe Sunday night they show up and decide to, do that assignment that they're working on and works for them. So they like that kind of model because it's easy. And now you've got a model that's using communication and collaboration and things on a daily or ongoing basis. And so there was pushback where they're like, wow, this is a lot of work to do this. I don't want to do that extra work. I like the old way of just, wait until Sunday night to have to do anything and, whipping it up and putting it together. That's easy. I can, goof off all weekend. And so all of a sudden now it's like, no, you need to be using it on a daily or regular basis. And so, yeah, that change of mindset about doing a little bit all the time versus saving up and doing one thing, at the end of the week, and that was considered the learning or the assignment, and so, yeah, that's a change or shift of learning for the students and also how professors teach and deliver, learning and education.
For professors, though, isn't that a little scary? Because typically your professors on one end, sometimes you may not want to interact with students.
Yeah.
Via Twitter, email, or anything else throughout the whole week. I mean, you have set office hours.
Oh, yeah.
Time to do this, we have a set time to do that. Sure. I don't see you on the weekends. And then I come back. And then on Monday, we come back to what we regularly do. So that can be a little intimidating, I would imagine.
Yeah, certainly a shift, right? There's certainly people who do that. It's like, hey, I don't communicate, after Friday, I don't, check in or communicate until Monday. And, that's certainly, anybody's right to do that, but it's really not helpful to students, and it's really not reflective of how businesses run and how communications happens now. So, certainly people can establish that as a way of communicating and still use the social tools and have some restrictions on it. What I found is, when students have a quick question or need some input or doing something, for me, it's a lot easier to just answer that at kind of in real time at the moment when it comes up and be done with it, rather than letting the questions pile up over several days. And now all of a sudden I have a huge pile of work on Monday to catch up versus just kind of knocking a little bit out, every day. And so it's sort of weird. It's not weird, but different way of thinking is I actually see this social as a time saver because it allows quicker communications and quicker responses. And then the way you answer questions, other students can see those answers, and that might save you, 5 or 10 other emails that you'd get from other students who have the same question. So it actually can save you time if you use it correctly rather than take more time. And so I think that's a big part of it. If professors thought of it as a time saver and an efficiency tool in the way that business does, they could make their lives a lot easier and not have to worry about, all these restrictions. Don't email me, from Friday till Monday, versus thinking like, wow, if I'm able to, if I can see a quick message on my phone and respond to it, I might save myself hours of time next week because I just did a quick little, public tweet response, and it takes, seconds to do that. So I don't know. It's confusing to me that perception of it as a time suck.
I can speak to that because I was teaching a course about social media, and I was focusing on Twitter for that particular week, and a student trying to get the students to learn how to use Twitter in real time.
Yeah.
One of the students sent me a question, and I responded to it, and it was over the weekend. I responded to it with a video. And she was like, well, first of all, I didn't even think you would even see the tweet. I was hoping you weren't going to see the tweet. That's
so I wouldn't have to do any more work if you don't respond.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the fact that she was able to get the answer that she wanted so quickly and with the video, just knocked it out. Like you said, for me, it was a time saver because when I saw her next class, she didn't have to ask that same question. Now we can move on to the next thing.
Yeah. And you probably helped a lot of other students too, who probably had the similar question and saw your response. And there's, all these great ways of doing that. So yeah, it's definitely, used properly. But again, the professors need training on that as well, because they have their own perceptions about social, oh, that's something that my kids do. That's not for me, or I'm already so busy, I don't have time for it. And if they realize just with a little training and learning, that could save them a lot of time in the future and make their lives a lot easier, and actually have a better connection and better learning experience for the students than kind of the traditional class model.
Well, then too, I'm thinking even as a professor, because everyone at this point is using some element of social to build an authority for themselves, even as a professor, as a teacher. How do you showcase what outside of the classroom?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can connect. I mean, we have conferences that we go to. Both professionals and educators have conferences that they attend to share learning and share their research, and that content can also be shared online, so it can be distributed more widely, and more people can benefit from that. And so that's a great new way to extend that. Also, you meet all these wonderful, smart people when you attend conferences, and it gives you a way to connect and continue to interact and collaborate with those people. So it makes that collaboration much easier. And so it really, expands your own personal learning and education. And so, yeah, it's a great way to extend your footprint, demonstrate your expertise and thought leadership in the areas that you focus on, and connect and collaborate with all the other smart people who are doing that, as well as industry. It's so much easier now for educators to find the smartest people in the world on whatever the subject matter is, and invite them into the classroom in the way you and I are talking right now. And that was never before possible, to think that it doesn't matter where you're located. Now I can bring in the smartest people in the world can come into the classroom, and that's who we should be learning from, not a professor lecturing for a whole hour every class. There's so many other opportunities for learning and engagement with people, and getting students to go out there and also connect and find these people and learn from them directly. So I always like challenge the students. I'm like, don't believe what I'm telling you. Don't take that at face value. Go out and see what the pros are saying, and if it matches up, then maybe I got something. But if I'm way out in left field, then forget about it. And so, I use it as a reinforcement. So the students would go out and go, wow, gee, the pros are saying this stuff. I guess the professor does know what they're talking about. And so I think it's a great validation. And all of a sudden now, credibility for you as an educator is like, wow, this person really does know their stuff. Look at what the other people are saying that reflect that. And so I think that's a huge benefit to building that trust and credibility. And yeah, it's exciting. It's a really exciting time.
Yeah, but the negative of that is if you're not careful, if you've been faking it.
Yeah. You
as a professor, that would show too.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? There's like any area that there's egos and turfs and fiefdoms and people. The argument that's sort of funny is academic freedom. Well, academic freedom isn't designed so that you can not help the students learn to their fullest potential and bring them the best that you can, and just do what's ever convenient for you. That's not really what academic freedom is designed for. And I think a lot of people fall back on that as a, sort of a defense. Well, I can teach the class however I want, and you shouldn't question this. I think there's the professors that are really doing a good job aren't afraid of that at all. They welcome that to show or highlight how well the learning experience is happening in their classroom, and even share that more Broadway. When I was teaching, I had a class hashtag, and the stuff that we were learning and sharing in class was being shared externally as well. So during class, industry pros could pop in and comment on what we were doing and learning about, and add their own contribution or reinforce what we were learning. And so, it's basically the classroom. I always say, the classroom becomes a global class because, it extends who can come into the class and who can share in that learning and how the students can engage with the rest of the world. And so, even though you might not have windows in your classroom in some cases, here you are connecting to the rest of the world. And to me, that's just such a huge benefit for the students and for the learning and what they really need to go out there and contribute to the world and contribute into the new economy and the jobs. I mean, they have to have these skill sets.
How do you measure as a professor if students really get it? Besides, you're not necessarily doing, well, you could be doing more traditional homework, but how do you really measure at the end of a semester that the students actually got it? And, that you can basically just leave them alone and they can run with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the best way you can measure it is, and the great thing about all these tools is, you learn by doing. And you can demonstrate that learning by doing. So it is matter of fact in the way that you assess it. You can say, here's things you need to be doing, and then they can go out and do it, and you can see it, immediately that they've done it and demonstrated it. So, that ability to demonstrate the learning and basically see it is huge. So it's very different than, somehow saving up or I think that the way that I think of it before is, a student was given a, hey, write this paper, and they write the paper and they turn it in to the professor, and the professor, reads it and maybe gives some feedback, and it goes back to the student. And, here they put all this time and effort into an assignment, and nobody's going to see it other than the professor and themselves, versus thinking about assignments that can be shared in a broader way and wider feedback and recognize, gee, this assignment that I'm doing is going to be seen, digitally and online. It can become part of my portfolio. It can be something that other people can see and use as a decision on, why that I would be a great employer, why I could contribute. So it really changes that dynamic of just, oh yeah, I'm, nobody's going to see it besides the professor. I'll just kind of whip this up and send it in. And, the professor spends all this time on feedback and goes back and it's a very sort of private, nothing beneficial outside of that individual's, learning moment personally. But now all of a sudden you can open that up, and so much more easier to evaluate, and you can do it almost instantly or in real time, depending on how you assess and evaluate it. And it's very clear to you, the student, and the world that they know how to do this stuff, and it can immediately benefit them in a professional way for getting better jobs and better opportunities, and for employers to evaluate what they can bring to the table. And again, that's huge. Before it was just, at the end of the semester, it's like, hey, I got a B. Oh, okay, well, what does B mean? Nobody in the world, a company can't evaluate that B. They just know, oh, you got a B in their market research class. Versus, if they were using social as a competitive intelligence or research tool, using it for collecting and analyzing the data, sharing the results in any kind of fashion. Now, if you can put that out there, a company can see exactly what you did, and now that gives them a reason to hire you and give you that great job. So I think it's a much better way of learning and evaluating and assessing and creating opportunities for students, professionally.
When you start thinking about resources, because hopefully there's a teacher or professor or someone that's watching this and they're thinking, okay, so what's the next step?
Sure.
Explain a little what Hootsuite provides.
Yeah, well, when I was teaching or social media and still to this day, right, with digital and social, I mean, it's changing all the time, and there's new things that come out, other ones that go away, and new ways of doing things. So how do you keep up on all of this? So I was really challenged. Especially when I started out, there was no curriculum for a social media professor, so I had to try to build it on my own. And what I quickly realized, the best way to keep up with it is to work with industry and see what they're doing, because they're challenged in trying to keep up with it as well. And so as I was trying to figure out how to do that, Hootsuite was developing education for the people who use their product, which is a social media management system and tool. And they were creating general education, not just how to use the tool, but how to use social media professionally. Because if you don't understand how to use social and the benefits of that, then it doesn't matter what tool you have, it's not going to be successful. So Hootsuite recognized that education was important. And so we piloted a program with Hootsuite. We made connection and piloted a program where we were able to use some of the great resources that they had for education and training and incorporate it into the classroom. So it's the Hootsuite Higher Education Program. And it was great because the students had access to, there's great webinars and video resources and education tools and thought leaders and all the content that you could use. But there's also assessment aspects of it where they were tested on some of these things. And at the end, they could even get certification on, using the social media management tool in a professional way. So at the end, the students came out with a certification, which that certification is, recognized by industry and also, a tool, a professional tool. And so students were, getting better job opportunities when they would go out to compete for a job. And this is from a wide range, whether it's advertising or PR or journalism or marketing or business or whatever the field was. They were going out, and when they were going up for a job, they were able to have a competitive advantage where they had this certification and other people didn't. And so this great resource, it's free for students and faculty to use as part of the higher education program. And you can incorporate it in your class as little or as much as you want. So you might just use a couple pieces of the content to help you with a particular topic or subject, or you could integrate it more fully into the classroom and learning and go all the way up through helping students get that certification. So to me, that was a great thing to have that resource, and then they're the ones continue updating and making sure the content is reflects what's going on in the moment or at that time, and so that allowed me to not only better keep up with it and help the students with their learning, it then freed me up to focus more on the important parts of the learning around the fundamentals and around the bigger concepts of marketing and communication and branding and PR and advertising, and then how social could be integrated in it. So it really made my job as a professor a lot easier, and it had such a huge benefit for the students as well.
What do you see is the future of things? Hopefully there will be more social media professors?
Yeah.
You're in a unique kind of situation because, like you said, to my knowledge, there are not a lot of social media professors by title as of yet.
Well, an interesting thing. I mean, to me, the parallel is, the jobs with that are titled, a social media director or social media manager. In some ways, those jobs, the titles are changing. So if you look deeper at people's job descriptions, you're seeing that social media is a requirement as a skill set for a variety of job titles. And so I think that's true on the education side, is that, I don't know if they necessarily have to be titled a social media professor, but, the ability to integrate social into, their classroom in that skill set and making that learning available. So in some ways, social media is never was really a great title to describe all the aspects of what go on into, communication, collaboration, creation, connection, all the things that social media, the technology and the tools enabled. The other thing that I see happening is, social media is sort of being embedded into everything. So if you look at, the mobile device and all the different applications on your phone and your devices, that social is sort of integrated into the fabric of what's going on. So I think we're going to see less use of the term social media per se, but the skill sets behind it are going to become even more critical because they are embedded in there. And so all this kind of soft skills around communication, collaboration, connection. So, even like startups, like in some ways, social terms of use, it's, it doesn't have that you know, crazy growth rate. It's kind of leveling off a little bit. And even in the startup area, you're seeing fewer startups, new startups that are coming out as, hey, I'm a social media startup and trying to do that. But when you see all these new tools and technologies and things, they're using social media and how they're connecting and collaborating. They're using it for, crowdsourcing and collaboration. Like that's another way of talking about. But if you look at crowdsourcing, the social is embedded into how you connect with the crowd, that whole collaboration. Or, the other new area, the Internet of Things. Well, now our devices are starting to connect and communicate and share data from our cars, from our fitness devices, from, physical products, and all that data and information that's being shared and collected. The Internet of Things. But if you look at it, that's, social is kind of embedded in that.
Mm-hmm. That brings to mind this question about the future of we've got connected cars, but what about the connected classroom?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to circle back to that because I think the one area that I wanted to mention in terms of, the future. So in the industry side, you have Slack, which is a collaboration tool. You have Yammer, which is a collaboration tool. You have IBM and Adobe have connection and collaboration tools. Facebook at Work is being tested in a lot of places and will be coming out here shortly, more widely distributed. And all of those, professional and work tools have social media embedded in it. The way you collaborate, the way you share documents and information. Email is a very inefficient way of communicating and sharing conversations and information, and all of that skill set into all these new areas of huge growth around the enterprise side. Again, it's not necessarily calling social media, but that's really what's driving it. That's the technology that made social possible, and how things connect and collaborate and share is embedded in there. So from, the crowd and collaboration kind of economy, the Internet of Things, to the way enterprises are connecting. And so the skills around using these tools are going to become more important. I'm not so sure it'll be called, social media as the way to define it, but all the skill sets are going to be hugely important for everyone at an organization and company. So yeah, it's going to become more important.
Well, thank you, and thank you again. This was a great conversation. I hope it will spark even more conversations, and not just conversations, but actually some actions too, as people begin to have. I think there's a need for almost a paradigm shift. I mean, there's a mindset that has to kind of shift. That takes time, though. that does not happen overnight, unfortunately, in some cases. But hopefully people that are watching this, if you want to reach out to Dr. Ward, where can people best reach you if they want more information?
Yeah, well, basically, if they Google Dr. Forward, DR, the number 4, WARD, they'll find all kinds of ways to reach me. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus, Pinterest, Instagram. It's almost wherever they're at. If they want to connect with me there, I'm happy to connect with them there. I also have a blog where I do regular updates. They can connect with me with that. It's just drforward.com, DR, the number 4, WARD.com. And I share stuff, daily, weekly on there about all the things that I'm trying to learn and keep up on, and I just share that out. So I have a lot of resources there. So yeah, I'm happy to connect with anybody. They should be able to find me in all those places. And again, wherever people are at, that's where you need to be to connect. So I try to live that myself and be as many places as possible. I'm even on Snapchat. If they want to connect with me on Snapchat, we can connect over there.
I'm sure there's a person thinking, how do you find the time? Do everything you also do,
Yeah.
and then be on every social platform that way.
You know what? Here's a great question. So the one thing you mentioned, it's really important about the mindset. So once you get the mindset, you're like, okay, now what? Well, you're going to need the skills. So that's where the education and training come in, and how to use those skills, and the tools. And so there's great tools out there, all those enterprise tools that I mentioned. But I use the Hootsuite tool, and so that allows me to connect all my social media into one place. And so it actually, I can be on 10 different places, and it only takes me one step to do that. So it actually saves me time. So as I add channels and different ways of communicating, I'm not adding a lot of extra time. So it doesn't take me any extra time, and I become much more efficient at it. And then, the same way when people come back and reach out to me, it doesn't really matter what channel they're on. It doesn't take me much more time if I have 5, 10 channels or 10 channels. It doesn't take me that much more time, sometimes no extra time, to be in all these other places. So really the tools make that possible. So again, getting that mindset, the skill set, and then getting the tools, and you can be very efficient and be in all the places where your customers and your students are, and where everybody else is. And it becomes an issue of not, should I be on these new platforms? It's like, well, why shouldn't I if it doesn't take a lot of extra time? So you can really get that freedom to experiment and try out. Doesn't mean you have to be everywhere, but don't think of it as always as like, oh gee, it's going to take me 10 times more time to be in all these channels. Sometimes it doesn't take a lot of extra time. So that's my view of it. So I'm not afraid to test out a new one and try out a new one, because I don't see it as taking a lot more time.
So that said, people, for those of you that are now inspired, just keep in mind, you don't have to be a 19, 20-year-old to take advantage of all the opportunities that the digital and social media, whatever we're going to be calling it 5, 10 years from now, provide. It really, age ain't nothing but a number, as it has often been said. It is literally just a mindset. So thank you so very much. Great conversation. Great conversation.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You say.